We learned this week that the extremely former UK Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn is to star in a pantomime.
Oh, no, he isn't.
Oh, yes, he is. Or, to be clear, for the benefit of listeners who may have been following the somewhat slapstick birthing spasms of Corbyn's putative new political party, another pantomime. We learned that Corbyn had agreed to an on-screen cameo in some ghastly-sounding production in a small theatre in his North London constituency, in which he will appear as the Wizard of Oslington.
Oh, no.
We did not learn, however, and remain mystified by the decision of producers to cast Corbyn as any variation of the Wizard of Oz. After all, one is famous as a vainglorious charlatan who encouraged a cast of picturesque naïfs to undertake a bewildering journey on the ultimately empty promise that he could solve all their problems with a variety of nebulous magic. And the other first appeared in a novel published by L. Frank Baum in 1900, later adapted into a popular MGM musical starring Judy Garland. Look, we checked, right? And all the widow tanky jokes had been done, and at any rate we would have then had to do a whole thing for international listeners about how tanky is a colloquial term for obdurate Stalinist, and widow twanky is a character in the popular pantomime Aladdin, so actually widow tanky is genuinely very witty. Well done to everyone who got there before we did. But we learned that Corbyn was not the only Labour Party leader, past or present, UK or elsewhere, having an arguably awkward interaction with popular culture. And we also learned that fat-headed culture war bun fights over nothing whatsoever are not an exclusively American province.
Arriving back in Australia from his overseas trip, the Prime Minister stepped off the plane proudly wearing a T-shirt with the name of a band, Joy Division.
We learned, yes, that Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese had descended the stairs of his official aircraft wearing a Joy Division T-shirt, and that Australians were up in arms. Let's have a sound effect of an up in arms Australian.
Struth.
We learned upon further frankly reluctant investigation that the upness in arms,
Struth,
being encouraged by Australian opposition leader Susan Ley, was not over the Prime Minister's taste in music as such, as indeed Joy Division made many fine records, as all discerning persons agree. Or even over the propriety of 60-something men, never mind prime actual ministers wearing band T-shirts in public, but over the admittedly unsavoury etymology of Joy Division's name.
The name was taken from the wing of a Nazi concentration camp.
We did not learn from this, obviously, that Albanese endorses the policies and or sentiments to which Susan Ley alluded, because he doesn't, but we did learn that Albanese was big enough not to note that Susan Ley chose to put that double S in her name during her own teenage punk years, just saying etc., or that she once drove a Volkswagen. We learned anyway, and at least, that not even all of Sue SS and Lay's coalition partners were willing to go along with this twaddle.
There's a lot to legitimately criticise the Prime Minister about. Trillion-dollar debt, skyrocketing house prices and job losses in our heavy industrial sector. Wearing a T-shirt isn't one of them. I'm part of the troubled and forgotten X-generation that came of age listening and dancing to Joy Division and New Order.
So we learned of Lay's attempts to weaponise Joy Division, and we worked on this upcoming bit for some time, pay attention, that far from creating a hostile atmosphere for the Prime Minister with her transmission, she has merely caused her own colleagues to wonder if she's lost control. And at least Albanese didn't get off the plane in Washington in a dead Kennedy's top. And on the subject of national leaders leaving Washington, D.C. on official aircraft, we learned as US President Donald Trump embarked on a tour of Asia that Earth's most powerful individual, the man upon whose whim human civilization lives from one minute to the next, is capable of telling the difference between certain large wild animals. So that was something.
They're really aptitude tests, I guess, in a certain way, but they're cognitive tests. Let AOC go against Trump. let Jasmine go against Trump. I don't think Jasmine, the first couple of questions are easy. A tiger, an elephant, a giraffe, When you get up to about 5 or 6, and then when you get up to 10 and 20 and 25, they couldn't come close to answering any of those questions.
Although we learned from which that someone in the circle of the President of the United States appears to think it useful that he at least semi-regularly takes the Montreal Cognitive Assessment Test, which is used to identify symptoms of dementia. Although we're sure, reviewing his appearances on his Asian tour, there's absolutely nothing to worry about on that front.
Now known as the Gulf of America. Isn't it nice? They say it now routinely. I heard the news today. The Gulf of America, weather is wonderful. They don't say it with a smile. It's called the Gulf of America. How did that happen, right?
We further learned that his plans for re-establishing US hegemon in the Caribbean, and we will further concede, having been beaten to all the Donroe Doctrine zingers, well done everybody, may not have ended there.
The US Department of Defense announced it was moving the US Gerald Ford aircraft carrier and its strike group from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean to add even more firepower to the situation.
We learned that, yes, some old-fashioned gunboat diplomacy is being brought to bear upon a particular Latin American capital.
Caracas?
It does seem at best an eccentric undertaking, yes. For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Mueller.